So the Xbox One X is a console you'll constantly hear being referred to as the most powerful video game console of all time. This is a really easy headline grabber, and it's a good way to get people to care about a console they might not otherwise know about. But is it something that's true? Does it matter if it's true? And is there a catch to that? And the simple answer to all of those questions is yes, but I wanted to go in depth to that and my more nuanced opinions in today's video, so you can know more about the Xbox One X before it does come out, and you can know whether it's worth picking up or not, and also some of the other things the console does quite well, because again, they really focus on one aspect, the power, but there's other things going on with this console that are worth knowing about, and like I said, there's the catch. So hopefully you all enjoy this video going over the Xbox One X. Like that if you do like it, because it helps out the channel a lot, and let's say you do like this, again, kind of Xbox One X review. Bear in mind though, that even though this video is not sponsored in any way, I can say whatever I want about the console. I can just trash the Xbox One X for 10 minutes. Microsoft did send me the console free of charge, so I could review it before it came out, because obviously it's not available yet, but I wanted to go through it and let you know if it's worth picking up in a couple of days when it comes out, and that's why I've got today's video. So yeah, and also 4K gameplay in the background. It's technically 4K super sampled down to 1080p, recorded at 1080p, then scaled up to 4K. That might matter to you, but basically it just means that the gameplay is going to look, it's 4K, and it's also the only games that are supporting 4K right now on the Xbox One X. We'll get into that later, but let's go straight into the first claim, the claim of the power of the Xbox One X. Is it the most powerful video game console of all time? And the answer to that question is yes, but technically pretty much any video game console that does release, with the exception of like the Switch, is usually the most powerful video game console of all time, because think about it, computing power is going exponentially up as time goes on. The Nintendo 64 was never going to be in competition with the Nintendo Switch, or the Nintendo 64 was never going to be in competition with the PS4. It's just like leagues and leagues and leagues and parts. However, with that said, the Xbox One X is still the most powerful console of this generation, and therefore the most powerful generation of all time, by not just a little bit, by quite a bit. So to put that in perspective, let's talk about teraflops. Teraflops, you don't need to care too much about what they are, but they're basically measures of how many computes you can do per second. Tera is obviously, quite high up in there. So the Nintendo Switch has somewhere less than 1 teraflop, even when it's in the dock mode. So 1 teraflops are baseline for the Nintendo Switch, which is roughly where they are. The Xbox One S and the Xbox One Original both launched with 1.3 teraflops of computing power. So again, that's enough to do a fair amount of stuff, and that's why that console is more powerful than the Switch. But the PlayStation 4 launched with 1.7 teraflops. This is one of the reasons why the PlayStation 4 did so well, because people realized it was a slightly more powerful console, and that meant that a lot of people picked up the PlayStation 4 as opposed to the Xbox One, which leads to why the Xbox One is in a slightly worse sales position. And then finally though, just kind of complete the table and talk about the Xbox One X. The Xbox One X has 6 teraflops of computing power. This is almost 5 times the computing power of the Xbox One, and about 4 times the computing power of the PlayStation 4. And it does physically have that. In case you care about other specs, it's got 12 gigs of RAM. I mean, you shouldn't really care about RAM as a gamer, but it's got 12 gigs of RAM, and it also comes with larger hard drives, so if those two measurements are the things you care about, then wow, 1 terabyte, that's the same as everything else. But no, the actually important measure, the teraflops, the Xbox One X has 6 teraflops, which is so much more powerful than any other video game console out there right now. I mean, even the PS4 Pro is like leaps and bounds away, which means that the Xbox One X is the only and the first true 4K console, a console which can deliver true 4K AAA experiences, which is a pretty nuts marker to have, right? So yeah, the Xbox One X is the most powerful console of all time. You almost don't want to believe it till you look at it, till you look into it, and you realize that yep, the specs of this thing really do back it up. It's an incredibly powerful piece of equipment, and it kind of goes back to the old console model, the one they did back last generation and they used to do a while ago, where they just launched incredibly powerful machines, and then presumably they make a loss on them some amount, and then they use that as a way to have powerful machines for the next 5 or 10 years. So yeah, basically the Xbox One X, very powerful, most powerful thing you can buy. If you want the most powerful console and that's all you're here for, then the Xbox One has that, One X has that, and that's something you can keep in mind. However, there's other things this console does the best that aren't really spoke about too much, maybe because you can't focus on like 3 things at once, but it also seems to be one of the least noisy consoles ever. At the very least, it's the quietest Xbox they've ever released, even playing at 4K, 60 FPS HDR titles, like stressing this thing to the max. I turned down my TV volume all the way so I could listen intensely to the fan. I could not hear it in the slightest. And bear in mind, we have a generation with the PlayStation 4 and the the 360 before that, where like fans just being loud is something you accept when your console is working really hard. But my Xbox One X, even while running these games, I could not hear it. And some people report that you can just about hear like a fan squirk if you do like the really intense stuff, but I could not hear anything at all, and that's nuts that we have the most powerful console that's also the quietest Xbox. And if you play, by the way, just regular Xbox titles, we'll get into it later, it's literally silent. I could not hear it at all. So silent, most powerful console of all time. That also, by the way, is apparently the smallest Xbox released ever. So this was something where I was kind of skeptical, because I thought it was bigger when I first got out of the box. It's technically smaller, and by smaller they mean like by the tiniest bit, but that does mean that if you're picking up an Xbox and you're trying to decide decide which one you want to get, and space is your biggest concern, then this is also the best Xbox to pick up. And also based on I mean, the PlayStation 4 slants a bit, so it's not a fair comparison, but it also does take up less space than my original PS4, and definitely takes up less space than the PlayStation 4 Pro. So yeah, it's the smallest Xbox released, and it's one of the smallest consoles ever released, I'd say, in terms of like recent years, last couple of decades, and that is a pretty nutty thing to have small, to have quiet, and to have powerful, all locked into the same console. And you know, this isn't like we used to think it was going to cost like 4 digits, like $1,000 something, you know, dollars, but this is on this is $449, which is about the launching price of a console, and here it is, most powerful console in the world that you can get for that same price. So anyway, let's talk about the, does that matter though? Because like I said, 6 teraflops is a lot of teraflops, and I've just praised the console non-stop, and you're saying, oh, well, it's because you got it for free or whatever. So let's talk about the catches on that and whether it's actually important, because having 6 teraflops of power does matter. Having the ability to run 4K titles, this is the first console to do that, does matter, but there is a lot of catches applied. So first of all, if you don't have a 4K monitor, you essentially don't need this. Like if you have extra money, you want to throw on a console and you care about the noise, you care about the size, then it is worth upgrading. However, playing 4K titles at 1080p, it's not much of a difference. They technically super sample down, and it means that pretty much every game will be running full 1080p, and some games might get a frame rate boost, but for the most part, you won't get a power boost unless you have a 4K TV and you want to really use all of those pixels. And even then, the difference between 1080p and 4K, because I played the games before they had 4K updates, and then after they had 4K updates, it's not the hugest of difference even on the best of displays, but it is something where in the future we'll look back at 1080p and be like, whoa, that looks really bad, and 4K is going to last much longer. And again, some of you out there might be really into like pixel counting or stuff like that, but it is worth noting that you need a 4K display to take advantage of this, and some games at least, I mean, some games you can kind of tell, and like especially like the some 4K DVDs, you can really see 4K. 4K is still one of those standards where it's debatable as to whether you need it or not, so you need 4K, and you need to care about 4K for this to be applicable to you for the most part. Again, you can get the most powerful console either way, but it really makes a lot more sense if you have a 4K display. So that's the first big catch, and the second, if you care about it, there is the power there, and also because the Xbox One X enhanced thing, it will run a lot of existing games at better frame rates. So that's really the sales pitch, I think, because most people don't have 4K displays. This is mostly aimed at people who have 1080p displays that want to pick up a new console, want to get that new console feeling, that new console fresh power, the most powerful console of all time. I feel like it's aimed at them with better load times and stuff like that, because this console, again, one of the things they don't even sell you on, they just say most powerful, is that it does have better load times than any other console. You can notice it, it's by about 1.5 times, so it's something, that is worth noticing. However, the big kind of catch on this whole thing, I said at the beginning, is there a catch to that? And I said sort of, and the long story short is there is a catch to the Xbox One X. So this catch is going to get, it's less and less of a deal. If you're watching this like at the day the Xbox One X comes out, this is important. If you're watching this in 2018, it's probably not important by then. However, the Xbox One X does not actually support every single game by default, because the developers have to code and support for the console. The console doesn't have support for the developers. Again, it works. The game has to program the support in for the console. And you might say, why does that matter? Well, essentially, a lot of developers have done this. It's 41 games right now have coded in support for the Xbox One X, but and it's going to go massively up by the time the console releases, and it's going to go massively up by December. It's going again, it's increasing over time. However, right now, if you expect to pick it up and play immediately, then you won't be able to play every game, and you don't even get to play the majority of games, or even a small minority. There are 41 games that are enhanced in some way by this. Most of them are just enhanced. Some titles are 4K, and some titles have HDR2. However, the catch on that is a lot of those titles are like 360 titles, or they're, Xbox original titles running in backwards compatibility mode. Like there is like Halo, free in there, for instance, and it's like, I mean, Halo free, Xbox One X enhanced, I don't know if I need that personally. So yeah, just keep in mind that this console, it's going to get better over time, and that's why I feel like the best advice would be like, if you get this, around Christmas time, and a lot of people get consoles for Christmas, right? If you're getting this console around Christmas time, or in the new year, because January sells, whatever your particular, inclination is, I feel like that is the best time to pick up this console. Although, although the, really tempting thing is to pick it up on launch, this is the biggest example of a console which gets better over time, and that is something which I guess must be worrying to Microsoft, because again, when you play the 4K experiences, you really value it. When you get the Xbox One X enhanced games, it's really valuable, but the longer you wait, the more of those exist, and the cheaper the console, because every piece of hardware eventually gets cheaper in price, the cheaper the hardware itself gets, so you get a better experience for less if you wait a month to get it. So this is the most powerful, silent, small video game console of all time. It's not the smallest of all of them, but it's the smallest, powerful video game console of all time. It's one of the quietest, powerful video game consoles of all time, and by the way, it's the most powerful video game console of all time, and it is something that is totally worth picking up if you want the only true 4K experience on the market right now, but just bear in mind that we have to wait for game updates to come out, and that is incidentally, by the way, why I haven't made a Minecraft video yet, because Minecraft is still working on their 4K update. There's no 4K support, there's no extra render distance, and presumably they'll add in super duper graphics when they do that. However, you know, it just goes to show that even Microsoft first-party titles are still working on that support. It's just one of these things where over time this console gets objectively better and better and better, but that does mean that right now you're in this weird kind of like early adopter loop where you're paying more to get very slightly less. Even though it's a lot, you're getting slightly less, and that's why I'd say watch out for this console. But if you're getting it, if it's a gift, if it's like something like that, then go ahead, pick up the console. You're going to enjoy it. It feels good, you know, from that early thing in the intro. You could, the noise, it just, everything is slightly better about this console. The menus work slightly faster. Everything on the Xbox OS side is really good in this console, but the game support is something that's coming slowly. I mean, again, there's a list of like over 200 confirmed titles that will come at some point, but right now, you know, like, so when most of the reviews of this console went up, pretty much no games had the 4K capability, and these reviews were just based on nothingness, and that is why I wanted to just kind of give you some caution here that, like, yeah, you can, I would pick this up on launch if you want to have the most powerful console, but it is also worth thinking about, you know, holding off for like, you know, a week or a month or something. It's not a bad thing to wait for this console, unlike a lot of other things where you want to get it day one. This has had the interesting effect where you don't necessarily want it day one, unless you do want it day one, in which case, go ahead and pick it up. So, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I know I don't usually review consoles on this channel, but I figure I cover so much about consoles, I cover so much about the Xbox One, and here is the most powerful Xbox One ever, so I figured this would be a natural fit. So, hopefully you do enjoy the video, like if you liked it, share if you really liked it, subscribe if you're around here, make sure you hit the notification bell, and yeah, like I said, this is proof that it's not a a sponsored video, because, I mean, if Microsoft really wanted me to praise their console, they wouldn't tell me to, you know, make people wait to buy it. So hopefully that's something that proves something to you, or maybe it's not, maybe you don't care. But with that said, hope you all enjoyed the video. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!